to mention what we have right here near the Tri-Cities. I thought we had kind of dodged a bullet this summer, but the fire season is still upon us, and there's a lot of property damage that I'm hearing about, particularly up in the Okanagan area, but also maybe you knew this already, but I'm told that we have lost two small towns in eastern Washington that have been, most of the houses have been burned. So that's really unfortunate. I've not heard about if there's any injuries or worse. Hopefully people are able to escape the danger of the fire to them personally, but I know we've lost a lot of property so far. And so pray for rain, put that on the agenda today. Well, it doesn't take long for me to listen to your opening comments to remember how much I enjoy Rotary myself. As you probably know, I'm a Rotarian from Sunnyside, and it's always fun to hear the bantering back and forth, the good-natured relationship that you guys have. And I got to say too, just I think it's truly important that groups such as yours continue to meet as you can, because you're really part of what keeps communities together through these, pick your adjectives about the times we are in right now, truly unprecedented. And people need to have that sense of normalcy that just is really hard to find right now. So kudos to you for continuing in your efforts to keep people together and doing what you do. And it's very important for the community. And I appreciate the opportunity to be a small part of that and be part of your program today. Lots of things I could report on to you. Some are plainly obvious, and you could probably tell me as much or more than I could tell you about. For instance, the pandemic that we're all experiencing, why we're meeting like this, the COVID-19 and the response. I can talk about a little bit from the Congress, the federal government, some of the efforts that we're making toward reopening, but certainly the recovery has been on everybody's mind. But so all the different impacts that this has had on our everyday life, our communities, our economy, everything has been touched by the coronavirus in ways that we never even imagined. And what I can tell you, I can admit to you that when this started and we were first debating what to do in Congress, how long this was going to last, we had no clue. If you recall the CARES Act that was passed early on, it was in March as a response to people's needs because of the coronavirus. Honestly, we just took a wild guess that maybe this would last 8 weeks or so. And we were way off, right? We had no idea that this was going to be as long running. Maybe some probably could have guessed that it would be, but most people we just didn't know. And so we hurried as fast as we could to get assistance out the door, so to speak, to help prop up the economy, to help workers, to help small businesses, to try to prevent our economy from literally going down the tubes in a very short amount of time. So we invested a ton of money, as you know, trillions of dollars in our economy, which I got to tell you, as a conservative Republican, fiscally conservative, that was on one hand difficult, but also I supported because I think the risk of our economy tanking was just too great, and that would have been even worse than incurring larger debt. So I think it was worth the investment and something that we needed to do. As you know, negotiations are ongoing. I'm making quotes with my fingers, air quotes. They're literally, in fact, I had a conference call this morning the negotiations on the next relief package are literally at a stalemate. We really have not, I don't anticipate seeing anything soon as far as a solution. The next steps are, we're way far apart from the Democrats and the Republicans' positions on what we should do next. There's negotiating happening, but not a lot of progress. And mix into all of that, add to the mix is the political environment that we are in. As you know, there's an election very soon, and I know it's not a surprise to anybody, but politics does play a role in some of the decisions or the timetable on when decisions are made. And so that's unfortunate. I think there's still some things that need to be done. I think still some things that we need to address as far as the shortcomings in our economy right now and helping people get through this. And so I'm hopeful that we can come to some kind of an agreement soon, but we're just not there yet. We could go on and on about the challenges that we face because of the coronavirus, though, in our communities. You guys know, you've seen firsthand the number of businesses that are struggling, the number of people that have been unemployed. Right now, here it is, 8th of September, right? School should be in session, and the struggle that school districts are dealing with educating kids, and just, I don't know how many of you have been able to attend your church over the last few months. Just everything you can think of has been impacted, and it truly is an unprecedented situation that we are in. Certainly a lot of fingers are being pointed for blame on a lot of different things. And I can just tell you this. One of my colleagues, who is a Democrat, served in the Clinton administration as the Secretary of Health. And Donna Shalala, you may have heard that name. She was asked, so did we stumble as a country when we were confronted with this pandemic? And her response was, in these kind of things, we always stumble. We're never fully as prepared as we should be, but we put our noses to the grindstone and we work as hard as we can to recover from that and respond to people's needs. And we saw that. We saw that in that first package, the CARES Act, that was passed last March, that in a bipartisan way, Congress came together to respond to all the different needs in our society. And I was proud of that. And I think we can continue to do that, and we should, and do as much as we can to keep the politics out of the whole dynamic of that response. But that's not easy, and maybe that's a little bit naive to think that we can fully do that, especially when November 3rd is right around the corner. But that's what we need to do in order to respond to the needs of people. I want to make sure that we have time for questions at the end of this, but and like I said, we could talk about the coronavirus and the pandemic and Congress's response or local government's responses. Many things that need to be addressed still. The needs of people are real. Needs of businesses are real. I can't tell you. I've asked this question, but it's still uncertain how many businesses we're going to lose because of all of this. And you being a group of people made up of many business people, maybe have some idea as to that. But my guess is that a lot of the restaurants are really struggling. A lot of the entertainment places, just across the board, people are really having a hard time. Part of that CARES package was that's called the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, that maybe you're familiar with. Maybe some of you were able to avail yourselves of to try to help small businesses get what I call it a bridge over this pandemic, so that they can emerge on the other side in better shape, and hopefully continue to be successful and get our economy back going as quickly as possible. I can give you some good news. As maybe you've heard of the Operation Warp Speed, the federal government's effort to come up with a vaccine for the coronavirus. This is the world has never seen, and that we will be able, I think, if things work out as anticipated, be able to respond to an issue like this with a vaccine in record amount of time. And the goal is to have something available at least by January, which is way quicker than has ever been accomplished before. You know, some of the, and just let me tell you too, I've been assured by, even though you hear in news reports a lot of different things about this effort, I have been assured that there's no corners being cut. The vaccines are going to be screened, and all of the measures that need to be taken to make sure that it's safe for the American public will be taken, and that we will be able to have confidence in the viability and safety of a vaccine. But it's happening in just record amount of time in order to try to alleviate the negative impacts of this pandemic. I don't think ever in the history of, certainly not our country or the world, have we seen this kind of a situation, and we've never seen this kind of a quick reaction to try to come up with a drug that will protect people. And the interesting thing about it is, even before all the testing and all of those things are done, they're being proactive, and I guess being optimistic too, making assumptions that, and this is happening on a couple different products, that the trials will go well, and so they're preparing the dosages so that they'll be available as soon as the approval is given. So we don't have to wait for the manufacturing of the serum when approval is given, that it'll already be ready for distribution. So trying to be as responsive as possible. Let's see, a lot of things are being done to help protect the agricultural industry, but a lot of the different businesses in the country, that almost anything you can think of is, like I said, is being impacted, and Congress is responding as well as possible. But something that I've been saying for a long time now is that we do not have the fiscal or financial wherewithal as a nation to prop up our economy for any extended period of time. There's not enough money in the universe to do that. Our goal has to be to reopen our economy as quickly as possible, with the caveat that it is done as safely as possible. And I have confidence that we can do that. I think over the last, this is September, the 9th month. We started this in the 3rd month, so almost 6 months now. Even though we've had some ups and downs in the numbers of infections and so forth, I think overall things are improving. People are getting smarter about how they interact. We're being much more, we're much better at exercising those recommended procedures to keep each other safe. And I think the more that we can move forward in that regard, the better off we're going to be in the long run. This is a way of life now, wearing a mask. I'm the first one that hates to wear one, but if that's what we have to do, then I'm totally willing to make that sacrifice. I just think it's incumbent upon us to get our economy and our way of life back to normal as soon as we possibly can, in as safe a way as possible. Let's see, there's a couple of other things that, like I said, this pandemic has impacted everything, even the work going on at Hanford, the work on the vitrification plant and all the important cleanup efforts that are happening there. The Hanford employee force has been impacted by their ability to come to work. And so we're trying to get that back online. As you know, the good thing is that those folks out there are used to dealing with things that are dangerous. And so even though it hampers their progress, there's already an understanding of how to deal with dangerous situations. But like I said, that has been impacted as well. We've had some visitors even throughout all of this over the last few months. Let's see, I think it was 2 weeks ago, the Secretary of Energy came to Hanford, Dan Brouillette. You probably saw, he came out to see some of the work that's going on here, to highlight some of the milestones that have been met and to gain an understanding, a better understanding of the nature of the work and the importance of it. So I always think that that's a very good thing when we get attention paid to the important things that are happening here at the Richland Reservation, nuclear reservation. So I've had several of my colleagues here as well. I try to invite as many of the members of Congress to Central Washington, so they see firsthand what it is that we are dealing with here, particularly as it relates to Hanford. I think that's tremendously important. Part of that education that has to happen, because as you know, the cost of the cleanup is high and it's ongoing. It's going to be for a long time. And new members of Congress, Congress changes a lot. We always have turnover, and that continuing education is important because this is a long-term commitment by the federal government, and it's important that people understand as much as possible about it. Another thing that I got to tell you that I'm thinking about the Columbia and the Snake River system and the dams that are on the rivers and our whole, all of the things, the benefits that we receive from the operation of the system. In my short lifetime, I'll chuckle about that, but certainly my recollection, I don't know of any time when there has been a louder voice opposing the existence of the dams on the river system. Those arguments seem to have gained a lot of momentum over the last few years, and it's very important for us to, I think, in my opinion, to be as strong as possible in advocating for the protection of those important pieces of infrastructure. There's so many things that our communities depend on because of those dams, and this is something that it's going to take a huge effort on our parts to preserve and protect. And so I just throw that out there as a plea. I try to tell as many people as possible that it's going to take all of us to make the case to continue educating people as to the importance of those dams. So appreciate your assistance with that. It's not just the hydropower, the clean, renewable, carbon-free, but it's the benefits of the water for agriculture and industry. It's the transportation system. It's a tremendous number of things. One thing that we don't even think about anymore, because none of you are old enough to remember the catastrophic floods that used to occur with regularity in the river system. But I'm not either, but certainly I've read stories about them and heard about them. Just so many things that the system as it operates, and why it's so important to Central Washington, actually to the whole northwestern part of the country. Madam President, I know you've been very gracious with your giving me lots of time to speak, but I would certainly be open to trying to ask or answer any questions that people might have. Like I said, there's a ton of things going on right now. There really are. Not all of them are pandemic related, but certainly that's high on people's minds, what our next steps are and what the response from the federal government should be. But from the natural disasters to some of these other things, I'm open to try to answer any questions that you might have. But it's certainly a pleasure to be with you, and it's good to see so many familiar faces, and hope that we can be together in person as soon as possible. Okay. So with that, I'll stop there and open up the floor to any questions you might have.
Okay, well, thank you again for taking time out of your busy day, both personally and professionally. And I will turn it over to Cheatham for the first question.
Hello, Congressman Newhouse. Thank you for joining us today. My question is, who do you think should foot the bill for the vaccines? You know, developing a vaccine is good, but getting people vaccinated is even more important. And should it be left to the federal government or the states or the individuals? What's your position? Thank you.
So that's a great question, and no one's ever asked me that before. So my guess is that this is a federal endeavor. You know, I remember getting the polio vaccines. You guys, many of you got that. You have the scar on your arm. I'm assuming that was a federal effort, but in something like this is a national challenge. The research is being, we put a lot of money into funding this research, and that would be my first reaction. My guess is that it's going to be either federally funded or at least covered by Medicare or Medicaid or insurance. So I don't think that I've heard no one talking about the cost to the individual. So I'm going to ask that question, though. That's, like I said, you're the first one to bring that up.
Thanks, Cheatham. Craig, over to you.
Congressman, a question on this next aid package, and maybe you can speak to it or not speak to it. I mean, there's a wide difference, obviously. Is that due to the fact that all of these tag-along funding requests, in addition to the real reality of what the aid is for and what the aid is really needed for?
Yeah, Craig, thank you for that question. I think that's what it boils down to, and I don't want to make this a partisan thing at all, but just from my observation and what I'm able to discern, the dilemma, I guess, the House has already passed their package. Even, the House is controlled by the Democrats. It was something like just over $3 trillion additional dollars to go towards pandemic issues. The Senate has come back with something. I think they're looking at bringing to the floors tomorrow something of much less than that. It was $1 trillion. Now I think it's more like 500 billion, but I don't know all the details of that yet. So there's a huge gulf between either of the Senate packages and the House package. And you're right. The Senate is trying to be more focused, more. Let's drill down to exactly what people need right now instead of some things that are not pandemic related at all. And so that's the difference. Instead of hanging a bunch of things, everything you can think of that's in the package that Nancy Pelosi put together, some that do not relate to the pandemic. Let's just stay focused. We've already spent a ton of money. Let's be as strategic, smart about this as possible.
And that's my concern, is some of these states have been so poorly run for a number of years and are in such financial disrupt. It's not, to me, it's my opinion, is that this bill should not include any money to help them bail themselves out.
Yeah, and that's a great point that many people have made, including myself, that some states are on the verge of bankruptcy already. This should not be a bailout to them. But if there are legitimate, and states are seeing some downturns in revenue, no question. With the economy virtually stopped, all kinds of tax revenue, governments at all levels are experiencing that. But if it's prior issues, prior mismanagement, or prior challenges that they had, that doesn't seem to be the place where the federal government should step in and write a blank check to bail them out of those situations. So we're trying to be, as like I said, we only have so much money to go around. We got to help as many people as we possibly can, and so it should be as targeted as possible. And one of the things that was, I mentioned the Paycheck Protection Program that was very helpful. The unemployment assistance, I think, helped a lot of people who, for no fault of their own, lost their jobs, or at least were laid off. That's expired, and that should be one of the incentives to pass a new package, because there are still people who aren't working. But we've got to be smarter about that as well. It's been shown that there's many people who decided that they would stay off work because they were making as much or more on unemployment than they would have if they had returned to work. So that's something that we've got to be careful doesn't happen. We've got to get our economy back rolling again.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I can hear you, Don.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Well, first of all, I think a lot of, and I witnessed this. I was in Washington, D.C. when some of the protests, the peaceful protests were happening. And it's really unfortunate that we have people that will take advantage of, a legitimate, maybe what started out as a peaceful protest, but then come in and with no intent of being peaceful whatsoever, but set on destruction and looting, actually just stealing, breaking store windows and cleaning out whatever merchandise there might have been. Those are the kinds of things that we just cannot tolerate. I'm all for expressing your opinions on things. That's certainly one thing, but this wanton destruction and outright theft of property, we really can't. We can't allow the bad guys to take over. And Don, it's a legitimate responsibility and obligation for the federal government to protect its assets, no matter where they be, whether it be in a national park.
No, let them do it. Yeah.
A statue, whether it be a federal building in downtown Portland. President Trump is not the first president to send in federal troops in that kind of a situation. Even President Obama did that. And so I fully support that. I do not think that we can afford to allow the lawlessness to take over our cities in this country. That's a pretty terrible place for us to be. Well, I would like to see, I guess in a perfect world, I'm one for local control is best whenever possible. If mayors and governors ask for assistance by the federal government, that's their call. I would like to see the response be as local as possible for as long as possible, but certainly with a fallback position if necessary, that they have the ability to ask for federal help. That's what it's there for. And some local officials avail themselves of that. I hate to, I guess, I want to be careful about the federal government being too aggressive in responding, certainly without local cooperation. That would be a concerning thing.
Margie.
Yes, I wanted to say that CARES Act was a good example of familiarity with current economic theory. That was well done. The dollars we put into the regular guy on the street come back in gasoline and food and local taxes, which our city and state governments have only the sales tax that they can collect on that. It was wonderfully done. That thing about waiting to see where the money goes and using it to buy back stock and using it to, awkward, very awkward. And the thing you should jot down is Washington Smoke Blog Spot, which is a interagency cooperation to show where the smoke is going on a day-to-day basis. Gives you a satellite view of where the plume is. It's Washington, it's WASMOKE blogspot.com. They're excellent. And we should have seen more of you, Mr. Representative. We've missed you.
Oh, thank you. I miss you guys too. It's not an easy time for any of us. I feel for kids right now who want to be in school and can't be, and teachers too that want to have their kids in their classroom. That's another area where I still think it's important for the local as possible, the decisions to be made. So I support the school boards and PTAs and the local people making the decision, but I hope as soon as possible school districts can begin to have in-person instruction back. I think, let me share with you, I had a school administration official, I think it was in Adams County, but it doesn't matter. When we went to virtual classrooms in the spring, they figured that they lost 50% of the kids. They weren't engaged on online instruction. I haven't heard any numbers this fall on that. Hopefully it's better, but just imagine that we can't afford to leave kids out, and that I'm afraid of the long-term impacts there. And then, trying to get on the internet. I'm happy that we're connected here. Many times, I live in a rural area. Many times, the video is not good, the audio is not good, or sometimes it just falls off altogether. Can you imagine having several school-age kids in your house trying to be in virtual classrooms and you yourself trying to work on the computer at the same time? It's really difficult, particularly for those of us in rural areas. And so, again, I want it to be as safe as possible, but I do hope we can get back to in-person instruction as quickly as we can.
Amen to that. Go ahead, Ron.
Question?
Sure.
Representative Newhouse, I've seen some pictures of some school districts in the United States mounting Wi-Fi, say modems or routers on top of their school buses and sending them out to rural areas. With this pandemic, this might be the right time for Congress to really push the federal government for Wi-Fi throughout the whole United States. Rural areas, hollers of Kentucky and whatever, even Alaska. What would your opinion be of that?
Ron, you're absolutely right. That's one of the the silver linings to this storm cloud that we have right now. I think, I used to kid people that with Congress or politicians always talk about rural broadband, but until I can stream a movie in my house, I'm not going to believe a word they say. This pandemic has shined a light on the inequity of rural and versus urban connectivity. And so I'm hopeful that this is the attention it needed in order to fix that, because we deserve and should have just as good a connection as anybody else. And so we are through the CARES Act. There's been several efforts since this started to help beef that up, and I think it's going to take some time, obviously, for this infrastructure to happen. But I think that there's a lot of people that are fully committed now to seeing this through. So I think it's a good thing. It's not just school instruction and the school bus idea. In fact, I think Quincy was actually doing that prior to the pandemic. But now a lot of people are depending on telemedicine, right? A lot of people are utilizing that, which is a great thing. And this working from home, I'm not sure that that's going to go away. People are finding out that they can work at home almost as well as they can go to an office and work. And so there's going to be more of that kind of thing. I hope you don't have regular Rotary meetings virtually. Maybe that'll get back to the way it was. But this internet thing is not going away. We're more dependent on it every single day. And so in order for us to be on equal footing with our urban cousins, we've got to have a strong internet system in the rural areas. So Ron, that's a great point, and I appreciate you understanding that.
Thank you for that answer.
Dan, this is Floyd Ivy. I know that in the 1950s, the REA brought electricity to many places, and including my home in New Mexico. But right now we've got in the month of August, we had a no-touch order from the BPA to the nuclear power plant out here by Richland. No touch, meaning do not at any time turn any of the power down, because we don't have anything to replace it with. The same thing happened to us back in March of 2018 when the ice storm came over. It was a no touch, don't turn that plant off. And there's been other times in which there's been very close to not having the electrical power required to keep people either cool in the winter or summer or warm in the winter. So right now we're at the point of being close to the same place that Governor Newsom was in last month when he had a gap in his renewable power. That is, if you don't have base load, you're not going to have the power, the lights on and the air conditioner running or the heaters running. So I'm wondering about the effort within the Congress, within the Senate, to recognize that getting nuclear power plants online, which are carbon-free in production, getting them online is not something that's done rapidly. It's going to take years to do it. And we're going to have other times in which we have high wind, fires, we got ice storms, they're going to happen, and they'll be happening here. So I'm just wondering what is the group in Congress that has some idea about the idea that power does not come out of the little plastic sockets in the wall. It actually comes from power production facilities.
Well, maybe Mike has some ideas about this, but certainly nuclear energy has to be part of all of the above approach to our meeting our electrical needs. We understand that in Central Washington because we have a comfort with nuclear energy that a lot of areas of the country don't share. But I can tell you that realization, as people are thinking about carbon, right? And the fact that nuclear energy has the benefits of no carbon whatsoever, that understanding that's going to be part of our solution. There's a lot of new technology, even since Columbia Generating was built, that people are looking at as to how to increase the production of electricity from nuclear energy. The small modular reactors is one effort that we're moving forward with. There's some between Richland and the Idaho National Laboratory, there's a concerted effort to move forward with production of these small modular reactors and other technology too. So Floyd, I think the future is bright for nuclear energy. The one caveat though is the spent waste. What do we do with that? And as you know, the political dynamics of Yucca Mountain in Nevada has where a lot of our nuclear waste that we have at Hanford is supposed to be destined is stuck in a political game of tennis. And so I'm concerned about that being a deterrent of us moving forward as quickly as we should be with nuclear energy. We've got to solve that waste problem, and we're moving. As you know, we're investing a ton of money at the vitrification plant with that in mind of Yucca Mountain being the destination for it. But until Congress can solve that issue, it's going to be we've got to find something, and we're not there yet.
One of our members, Thurman Cooper, is developing a battery that would be the kind of battery that would store electricity from wind towers and solar panels, and it's a high production battery. And so there will be a battery market and battery inventions here within the next 10 years.
Yeah, and PNNL is working hard on that concept as well. They're